All right, awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get started at 10:30. My name is Allison. This is Steve Kitterman, and he's going to turn his mic off. Awesome. We are both JavaScript developers on the Story Maps team, and you have come to Story Maps Configuring and Customizing Web Apps. So just really quickly, this is our agenda, just to make sure you're all still interested in the first 3 minutes. I'm just going to do a quick introduction to Story Maps. I know probably a lot of you have already worked with them, but just so we're all on the same page about what it is and what we're talking about. I'm going to show some real-world examples of sort of the default Story Maps versus customizations that we have found pretty cool in the last year. Steve's going to talk about technical architecture and how to customize, like your sort of 4 options of levels of customization and technicality and how deep you want to go. And then we're going to go through 4 demos, and then we're going to talk about what's new and what's coming up. Ooh, if I talk this way, it's louder. Okay. Whoa. And then I'm just going to go run through some resources so that if you have not memorized everything that we say in the next hour, you have somewhere to go when you leave this room. So just as a quick survey, I'm just sort of interested in sort of your experience with Story Maps. Can I see a show of hands if you have built Story Maps online using our online builders? Awesome. Have you added custom HTML or CSS to your Story Maps? Awesome. Have you added custom JavaScript, like downloaded it and gotten everything to interact with each other? Amazing. Okay, I see a couple of hands. Hopefully by the end of the day, all of you will be like, yes, I can totally do that. This is going to be amazing. And how many of you are like, I have no idea what Story Maps is, or I've never seen them before? Okay, cool. For those of you who are like, I have no idea, we also have another session this afternoon. It's a demo theater. You should Google it. You should look it up on the schedule. It's this afternoon in a demo theater, and it's just sort of an intro to Story Maps. We also have an island in the online area of the showcase, and you should definitely stop by and come talk to us. If you don't know what they are, or even if you do know what they are, and you're like, I have these amazing customizations, you should show my stuff next year. We definitely want to see it. And some of the ideas that we get for new features and new functionality come from customizations that we just keep seeing over and over again. And we're like, okay, well, everybody's doing this. We might as well incorporate it into the builder so that it's less work for other people who aren't as technically savvy. So we're always interested in your ideas. Come talk to us. So just quick intro so that we're all on the same page. Story Maps are simple web apps that combine interactive maps, multimedia content, and user experiences to inform, educate, and inspire your audience and tell stories about the world. I would just like to highlight a couple of things here. Number one, they are simple web apps. So the goal of them is after you do your analysis. Think of it more like a web article, like a magazine article, or PowerPoint. It's not going to be a kitchen sink GIS app. We are not ever going to put a giant row of widgets across the top and down the side. We hope that the authors of the Story Maps have sort of already gotten the goal of the point that they're trying to convey, and then our stuff is a tool to convey that to your audience and give them some interactivity, but also focused interactivity, so that there's still a specific guiding point to your application. For instance, we're not going to put a filter widget in there. You guys can, but we would encourage you not to. And we would encourage your authors to have sort of already filtered things down so that you've got what you want to convey to your audience. So just keep that in mind and keep the simplicity in mind when you're throwing things at Story Maps. We also would like to encourage you to think carefully about the colors that you do. That's an easy customization that a bunch of people are doing to change to their brand colors or something. And if you just sort of don't have a good eye for colors, I would just encourage you to think a little bit strategically about colors. Maybe call up a designer friend that you know and run them by them. And then third, Story Maps are responsive. And so when you're customizing things, and particularly if you're adding JavaScript functionality or HTML, just keep in mind that they are designed to work at all screen sizes, so you should be testing them at all screen sizes too. We have 8 templates, and I know a lot of you have worked with a lot of them. I just want to run down the names in case you're like a map journal only person. So these are our 8 templates. They roughly break down into 3 categories. The narrative ones are Cascade and Journal. There's 4 of them that are based around a single map, Shortlist, Map Tour, Crowdsource, and Basic. And then there are 2 that sort of do comparisons between maps. That's Map Series and Swipe Spyglass. And now we are going to go to real-world examples of some of the cool customizations that we've seen recently. Here we go. So I'm just going to do this is a default one that you can do with a builder, and then this is what it looks like when you either download it and customize it or do some other sort of styling to it. So this is a default one. This is our Cascade, and it's a light theme. It's got a white background and a black header, as you can see. This guy is one that somebody customized, and it has a blue background and a white header, which I think is pretty cool. And also one thing, this isn't really customization, but one thing that I think is really cool that this guy does a lot is uses the background as the background of transparent images in his media. This doesn't look great on the projector, but it looks cooler over here, I promise. So that blue, those 3 images are transparent PNGs, and he's using the blue background as the background of the images to make them stand out. So he doesn't have to coordinate, make sure the backgrounds match of images. That also looks particularly cool on the dark theme. This is a map journal. This is the default map journal. The default styling, and also the default, these are called story actions. So if you click on this, it's going to navigate sections. Story actions by default look like this. They just have a dotted underline, and they look like a link. You can customize them, which we'll see later this afternoon. So this is a cool one. This actually has a bunch of customizations to it. You can see there's the white border and the white panel, which is not a default style, so they've done some work there. And then also those actions, which are here, look more like a button, and so it looks more engaging to users. We see a lot of examples of that, and we're going to go over that example as a demo. I like this one because it's an animated GIF. I really like the header on this one. It just gives it a sense of motion along with the globe that's spinning at the same time, and then you can see there's a little their little logo dips down into the thing too, so it feels more branded. And then that's also custom colors over on the navigation panel, on the .nav. This is a default shortlist. You can change the colors within the builder. So they've chosen an aqua, but all of the layout and all of the rest of the stuff is pretty default. And then this is a cool one that really gives you a sense of okay, we're talking old-timey things here. The map is old-timey. They've customized this background here. They've customized the header. So stuff like that just makes it feel okay, this is my brand. This is my point. This is what I'm going for. You're definitely getting a historical feel from this. This is a customization that is relatively easy, and we get a lot of requests for. It's just a language switcher. This is just a link that you can add to the HTML to link out to to a story that you have translated. You still have to do the translating. We're not going to translate it into Spanish for you. But if you have multilingual audiences and you want to direct them somewhere else, you can just throw in a prominent HTML button there. And then these are 2 JavaScript examples. This is our Marvel superheroes. And when you click on one of these points, it'll zoom you into the point and it'll navigate you to the section. So each of these, where's my mouse? Each of these superheroes has a point of origin. And if you click on it, they also have a corresponding entry in the side panel, and it'll navigate the side panel to that. And that's what that's another demo that we're going to do that I can show you how to customize. It's 20 lines of JavaScript. All of you can do it too. And then this is an index map that stays in the side panel, and you can click on these points, and it will also navigate the section to where you're going. So that is another customization that you can do as an index map. Okay.
All right. You guys all seeing how you can customize? Can you hear me? Good. So let's talk a little bit about how you can customize story maps. As Allison has mentioned, there's a lot of really cool examples out there. There's even more that we don't have time to show. And really, the sky's kind of the limit. It depends on what you want to do. There's nothing that prevents anyone from doing some pretty deep and pretty hardcore customizations. We'll start out with the simplest way and go to the most complex. So first of all, if you are lucky enough to be building a map journal and all you need to make is style changes, chances are likely you don't even need to download and self-host the code at all. I'm not sure if you all are aware of this, but when you go in to edit your sections, you can actually see an HTML view of the section, and you can directly add in style tags there. You can add in class names, anything you need. If all you need to do is CSS customization, that's a great option for you. And that is also coming soon to Map Series in April with the next ArcGIS online release. So that will be available in that app as well. A little bit more in depth, if you want to customize the styles of other apps, then you need to download our code. And there's a style tag in index.html that very clearly says custom CSS rules, so you know where you can put it without shooting yourself in the foot. And it's just in there. Now, if you need to modify some behavior with JavaScript or to maybe add on to something, chances are likely you may still be able to get by with using the Minified Code. And so what you can do is just download the Minified Code. And we have a file called customscripts.js. And basically in that file, here's an example of it here, screenshot. This is where you can listen for different events that the app may give you. For example, this is just using Dojo. Topic.subscribe is just listening for an event that the app sends. In this case, the TPL ready that you see kind of in the middle of the screen, that's just saying that the application is loaded, the data's all there, everything's ready to go. So if perhaps you wanted to put a custom widget on top of the story map or something there, that might be a place to put it. There are other topics that are sent as well, for example, story navigated section and so on. And if you look in our readmes on GitHub, you'll see more information on how to customize and how to hook into to different lifecycle hooks that we have available. Another thing that can be helpful in that case is we expose a global variable app. And the reason for that is that it allows you to have access to the data, map, or maps, depending on what type of story map you're building, maybe some UI functionality, things like that. And so from that custom scripts file, without actually getting into the rest of the source code, you can still modify behavior, add on behavior. Now, where can you go to get this code? The best way is probably GitHub, if you're a developer. That may be what you're most familiar with. So we have our public GitHub repos. All of our apps have public GitHub code available. And you can go on there, as is shown in the highlighted screenshot on the right. That link will download the zip file of the Minified Code. And also on the Story Maps website, under each of our application, on the detail pages of each one, it has a link where you can download the code as well. Now, if you want to get your hands dirty and you want to do more in-depth customizations, then you'll want to take our source code, our unminified code. And in that case, we recommend you clone it from GitHub instead of downloading. And that's just that it enables you to stay current with our new changes. Each release we make modifications, we add enhancements, we fix bugs. And that way you can stay on top of what we're doing and get the new changes as well if you want them. And our readmes give a lot of details on how specifically you can work with our source code, our unminified code, and how you can build that back up so that it can be optimized when you want to host that and have it ready to go. Now, generally speaking, I'm not going to get into the details, but generally speaking, our source code is split up by viewer and builder functionality. So if you're just trying to modify things in the viewer, which is most likely what you're doing, then you can do that directly. Also, we group our files by domain, as seen in the screenshot on the left. If you're trying to modify the share dialog, we have the markup, the functionality, and the styling all right together in the same folder, and that's a pattern we generally follow. So, should you use the source of the minified version? In summary, go with the easiest and path of least effort. If you're able to do things in the builders, by all means do them. Make sure before you customize that you look within the builders and make sure that the functionality isn't available natively. We try to add things every couple releases into the builders to make that possible. And then you probably need to use the source code if you're trying to do in-depth modifications or modifying existing behavior. And we're happy to talk with you guys this week if you have any questions or run across any issues with that. So let's show some demos. We're going to kind of follow the same pattern, start with the simplest demos to the most complex in terms of how deep you need to get into the code or if you need to download the source code versus the minified code and so forth. So I'll go first. And what I'm going to show is an example of styling a map journal. So as I said before, with Map Journal, if all you're changing is the styles, you can customize that and change that right within the builder itself without having to download and self-host or anything. So here we have a Map Journal. It's hosted on arcgis.com. It's a pretty typical Map Journal with some content and a map on the main stage. Those of you who aren't familiar with Map Journal, this little underlined text right here is a main stage action. And what that means is it's a button that when you click it, it changes the content on the main stage. In this case, we're now looking at satellite imagery. But in our case, maybe we want that button to look a little bit more button-y. And maybe you even have an existing color scheme that you want it to fit in within your own app. So what we can do is if we come here to edit the section, there's actually an HTML editor. And this corresponds with the markup that you see. So for example, this paragraph is this paragraph here. And coming down, we notice that this is the element for the main stage action itself. So we're going to want to add some styles here to tell the main stage action to look a bit more like a button. So coming over to my snippets, we're first going to add a couple class names. First to the container of the button, and then secondly to the button itself. So having done that, we'll then bring over some styles. And because this is an HTML editor, you can bring in a style tag directly and add any CSS modifications you need to make. So in this case, all we're saying is we want to center the button. We want it to look like a button. When it's hovered over, we want it to change so that it looks actionable. And upon doing that, voila, we have a button here, centered, and it looks just like you'd expect. And that's a simple example, but there are even more extensive things you can do. If all you need to do is change styles in Map Journal, the builder is a great option because you don't even need to download and self-host the code yourself. And the other nice thing, as I mentioned before, is that this is also coming to map series. So if you have a map series that you're trying to customize styles with, that will be available at the next ArcGIS online release.
So I'm going to talk about, I'm going to do 2 demos on the same app. This is a map journal that I've created about Palm Springs. Truth be told, I stole it from a map tour that somebody else put a lot of work into, but that's fine. So what my journal does right now, this is just totally default settings. When I navigate, all of this was done in Builder. It navigates to a particular point that I told it to and puts a particular pop-up on it. And as I keep going, it changes. However, if I'm here and I click on this guy, the section stays the same, even though there's a section about Starbucks that I would rather it navigate to. And then also when I click on the home button, when I'm in this particular section, it just goes to the home button, the home extent for Sherman's Deli. And what I would actually prefer it to do is to go back to the actual home overview of all of Palm Springs. So we are going to get to that complicated, that slightly more complicated one a little bit later. First, I am going to change the styles of this a little bit. Let's go to this guy. So I sort of want to do some different colors here, and I don't have to download it to just change the colors around the map journal. So I'm going to go to Builder and check out what I can do. Our colors are called themes. So I'm going to try this one, and I don't know, that's got a bit of a deserty feel to it, but it's still not totally what I'm going for. What I actually kind of want is a pink strip over here, because I'm a fan of, pink. So what I'm going to do is open up ArcGIS Assistant. How many of you worked with ArcGIS Assistant before? Okay, awesome. If you haven't, you should definitely get to know it. This is how it's an easier interface to change the JSON behind the apps that you're working with. So I'm going to look for my Palm Springs app, and I'm going to view the items JSON. I can tell this is my web app. The other one is my map. So all of the data for my map journal is here. This is the metadata up here. And as I scroll down, I can see that this is the data behind my map journal, that our map journal code looks at this config file and constructs the map journal that you see. I actually noticed that I don't have any colors here, and the reason is because I just used the default colors. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just save this, and it should populate a colors object within that JSON. Scroll down again. So now I see theme, colors got filled in, and fonts got filled in. I'm going to change those. So let's edit the JSON. Yes, yes, I do understand the risks. And so that you do not have to watch me typing code, I've already gotten a typed a colors object here, which I'll go over in a second. So one thing that you need to do is just add -modified to whatever the name of your theme is, because everything else matches by name. So just put modified in there and you're good. And then the .nav is going to be a fun color, and then you can change all of the rest of these to you've got the text link will look a little bit different in your text on the side panel, and you can change the side panel color. So we're going to go back here and paste this here. And then save it. And then refresh it. Ta-da, we have a pink border and gray little .navs over here, and it's still doing all of the same things, but I didn't have to download it or host it just to make those simple style changes. If I added an overview map or a legend to this, it would also change some colors there too. So you've got something that like feels a little bit more like your own. Second, I'm going to add that JavaScript functionality that I talked about. So I would like to, when I click on this point from the overview map or from anywhere, I would actually like it to navigate the sections there. For that, that's JavaScript, so I do have to download it. I am going to, there's a couple of options for downloading, as Steve Kitterman said. You can go to our GitHub. So this is Esri's GitHub, and I've already searched for Map Journal. And if I click on Map Journal, I can go to releases. And this zip file here is the minified code. So you get viewermin.zip, buildermin.zip, all of the CSS files are minified. You don't have to touch our stuff at all. You can just dump all of your stuff into customscripts.js or index.html and sort of not worry about what we're doing. That is one option. You can also, as he mentioned, download the source code, but if you do source code, we would appreciate that you clone it instead and use it as a live repo that you can update when we update things. So the other option, the other way to get here is we have our story maps site, storymaps.arcgis.com. Each app has its own page, and if you scroll down, you can find those downloads there too. So this is under the host it yourself section. This is the same zip file with all of the minified code, and then it'll also direct you to GitHub to download it there. So if you're not, whichever way you want to get there is cool. So now I've already downloaded it, so you don't have to wait and watch me do that. This is the download. This is the structure. I've downloaded the minified one. Again, .min or -min, and then here's custom scripts is what I'm going to be working with, and then also index.html is up here. So if I go back here and I try and load it, this is what I downloaded, and it goes, no, you can't just, like, I don't know where the data is. This is all just like the container app. I need to know where your config file is. So that's all done by an app ID. So if I copy this app ID here and I go back to index.html, and get rid of this guy. In config options, you just put the app ID here, and then authorized owners, just put a star for now because it's public and it's fine. And then if I go back to this should load. And now I have my same fun pink border, and I've got the same functionality that I had, where if I navigate around, it'll move, but if I click on something else, it'll just stay where it is. So I'm going to go to customscripts.js, and this is where you put your custom JavaScript, and I am going to copy some JavaScript that I've already written. And so let's walk through this. So I need to know, it's possible in map journals that there's a bunch of maps. So I need to know what map I'm looking for. So I know the web map ID. This is the fun web map ID. I also need to know there might be a bunch of layers in this map. What layer am I listening for clicks on? It's this layer. You can find that information also in the web map JSON, which you can find in AGO Assistant, which is a little bit beyond the scope of this, but I swear it's there, it's not that hard. And then I also want to make sure, so what I'm going to do is set up a click handler on that layer. When somebody clicks on that layer, it figures out what point it is, it figures out what section it goes to. I only want to set it up once, so I'm just going to put a Boolean in here to make sure I only set it up once. This is the, there's a bunch of events, as Steve said, there's a bunch of events that we are publishing. The one that you want to listen to for this is story loaded map. That means we have loaded a map. Here is the map. The only thing that we give you, though, is the map ID. So you're going to check the ID of that with the web map ID that you found from your web map. Make sure that you haven't already set up the click handler. And then just grab the map from where they live, which is in that global map app object that he was talking about. And grab the layer that you had the ID for. So as long as we have a layer, we're going to say, okay, great, we've set up a click handler. And then on the layer click, we're just going to do a bunch of things to sort of tell the app that, that it's loading and that it shouldn't do some other things. We're going to ignore the actual click on the layer. And then the way that I've set up this layer, all of the, one of the attributes of the layer is just a sequential number that corresponds to the section that it needs to navigate to. So like Starbucks is section 5, Starbucks has _ object ID of 5. So that's a nice little coordination that I can use to know where I'm going. And then all I have to do is publish another event that the app is already listening for to navigate to that section, which I got from that attribute. 100. And then just tell the app that it's not loading anymore. And that's it. So I've saved that, and hopefully this is going to work. It has worked before. This is not totally, aha, great. So now I clicked on wind farms. It knew that I wanted to see wind farms. It knew that I wanted that section, and now I'm in the section wind farms. And then I can do the same thing. I don't have to be back at the home section. I can do the same thing and click around. And the sides panel is scrolling to the section that you want it to scroll to. Now, like I mentioned before, I really want the home button to go back home, so we need to do one more thing. Oops, copy. Let's do this. So this is saying I have a map, but I want to look in that map's particular container, and that home button has this class on it, so I'm just looking for this map button. And then on this click, I'm going to hide the info window, and then I'm going to navigate to section 0. So it's the exact same call. I just tell it where to go, and it goes there, and it's magic, and let's see if it works. I have DevTools open just so it doesn't cache, not because I think that something's going to go wrong. Don't worry. So we're at Palm Springs Aerial Tramway. This is San Jacinto. This is our colleague Rupert, who likes to take pictures. Okay, and then let's go here and see what happens when we go to the home button, and it goes back home. So that is like 20 lines of JavaScript, and you have this sort of interactive, this is based on a map tour. So generally, this would actually be a map tour because it's a bunch of points with a bunch of stuff about them. But if you have a lot more to say about it, map tour has like sort of caption size text. And in this, you can just go on and on for paragraphs about whatever point you're going to. And then one more thing while I'm here, just because, see how these, I don't know, I feel like these pop-ups are like way too big for this app. And while I'm here anyway, I can just add some styles. Which I've already typed up, so you don't have to watch me type. I'm going back to index.html, and I'm finding, because I can never find it, custom CSS rules. So we already have added a style tag for you here, and all you have to do is add your own styles, save it, reload, and now I've got slightly smaller pop-ups. They were smaller in my head. Okay, so that is where you put custom CSS if you've already downloaded it. If you're working with Journal, as Steve already mentioned, if you're working with Journal and you've got the HTML editor, you can put them in there and you don't have to download them. But for any other app, you need to download them and then just put them in index.html. They're separate from all of our CSS. You don't have to worry about digging through our Minified Code or digging through whatever other files to find where you need to put it. Just put it in index.html. And that is our app.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Just 1 second. Okay. So I'm going to show an example of customizing story map shortlist template. And this is a Palm Springs shortlist that we have made. In fact, Rupert Essinger on our team made this shortlist. And those of you who are familiar with shortlist know that each place has a title, image, short description, and then a nice long description text. Now, if you're making a shortlist, say for your city or just for your own places of interest, maybe you would like for people to be able to see what hours some of these attractions are open for, or maybe a phone number. And better yet, maybe you want people to be able to call the restaurant directly from your shortlist if they're on their mobile phone. So I'm going to show how to do that. So basically what we need to do is add custom fields to the shortlist data for hours and phone numbers, and then customize the code in shortlist to handle that data and display it on the screen. It's fairly straightforward. In this case, we do need to download it and self-host the code, and it needs to be the minified, or the source code, the unminified code, because we're directly modifying the behavior of shortlist itself. So first of all, we have to have the data in the right format that shortlist knows how to read. So in the shortlist builder, under the help tab, we have access to the data schema. And this just provides some little Excel files, whether it's CSV or XLSX, that have the example schema that you can work with. This is the example of it right here. So when you download that, you get this schema. And this has some default data. But the most important part, and the thing I want to call out right now, is these are the fields that we have to keep the same. We don't want to touch these. So we're going to add in here a field for phone number and a field for hours. And then coming in here, this is where we would add in the data as we have it. So I've gone ahead and I've created some data, some fictitious places in Palm Springs that I like to eat at. And I'm going to go ahead and bring those into the web map. So let's go ahead and grab from that file. And we have those points. So let's go ahead and save that and make that into a short list. So many of you may be familiar with creating a story map from the Story Maps website, that we have places there, there's buttons there, there's a dialog there that help you create story maps. But you can also do so from an ArcGIS Online web map itself. So if you go to the Share, and then down to Create a Web App, then you'll see shortlist in the list of story maps that you can build. So we'll go ahead and build a shortlist from this. We'll give it a generic name for now, but you get the idea. And once this loads, shortlist is going to recognize that we've already brought in some point data. And it's going to ask us what we want to do with it. Now in this case, we actually don't want to edit our point data in the shortlist builder itself. In fact, we've already done the editing, right? We've already uploaded the CSV file with all of our data. And so we're going to choose this second point. And one of the reasons we do that is we don't want to have our hours or our phone number custom fields blown away when we hit save. We want to keep them as is. So in this situation, you can still edit that data, but you would do so within the ArcGIS Online web map itself. So hitting next, we now see these fictitious places right here. Now we'll notice that these look a lot like other shortlist places, but you'll notice that the field is missing. There's no phone number, there's no hours. So we need to go in the code and tell shortlist how to grab that data. So first of all, let's come over to the code itself. As I said before, we group our files by domain. So right here we have detail slide, detail panel. These are the pieces we're going to be customizing, and they're all right next to each other. So first of all, we need to change the markup. We want to put the hours and phone number right in between the short description and the long description. So we can go ahead and add in some markup. All I'm doing here is adding a field for a phone number and a field for hours. Next, we're going to need to customize the functionality. So we have are functions here that populate the place data from the data that we load in. And scrolling up, we'll see that we have places where we can bring in the data from description, from short description, from title, and we need to do the exact same thing for phone numbers and hours. So we'll come over to this snippet just so I don't have to type all this out. And we're first of all going to declare variables for both the phone number and the hours. We're then going to tell the data, we're then going to tell shortlist where to grab the data from. Okay, so we're looking for fields that have the name phone and hours. You remember that's the field names that we gave the CSV file. And then very last of all, we're going to need to tell shortlist how to populate the HTML. So scrolling down here, what we're basically saying is, hey, if there is a phone number in the data, then we do want to inject that into the DOM. And in fact, in this case, what we're going to do with the phone number is we're going to style it, we're going to format it so that it looks like a telephone number and it feels like a telephone number as we would expect. So that when we hit it on the phone, it'll bring up the call dialog just like any other phone number would. And we do the exact same thing with hours. If there are hours, we're going to add that in as well. And we have to do this for both desktop and mobile since there's slightly different behavior of each, but I just show you desktop today. Last of all, we need to add in styles. So we may want the phone number to look blue and actionable so people know that it's a link and not just plain text. So we'll come over to the same detail panel.css and throw in those styles. Basically, all we're doing is making it look nice. So if we come over and we refresh, you know what? I'll just show it here since the Wi-Fi is a little slow. So the result of that will be this. So you notice that we now have the phone number, we now have the hours information formatted inline, nice and pretty. And as a bonus, let's see what that would actually look like on a phone if you were to come to that. Okay, so this is the same exact app on the phone. So if we click on our point, you'll notice that we have the hours and we have the phone number. And clicking on the phone number will indeed bring up the call dialog just like we would expect, and you can call the place directly from shortlist. So this is a pretty cool little demo, but the idea is that there's a lot of things you can do with the source code, as Allison has talked about, as I've shown. There are a lot of cool things you can do with the source code. If you really want to get deep into customizing, especially if you need to modify existing behavior, then that's your best bet. And like I said, we're free this week. Come by our booth if you have questions or if you've had problems with that. So now let's talk a little bit at the very end. We just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an orientation of what is new with story maps since the user conference, as well as some things that are coming out with our next ArcGIS online release. So first of all, things that we've done since the user conference. We've added accessibility for Map Journal. So Map Journal is now fully keyboard navigable, which is a huge improvement for accessibility. We've added more fonts in Cascade. There's a wider variety of fonts available so that stories can have a little bit more of a diversified look from other ones already out there. We've also added a dark theme into Cascade. So now you have the ability of having a dark background with light text instead of just light background and dark text. We've also added alternative images for mobile. And so this is really nice if you have scenes, web scenes, or other media that may be a bit heavier, say a video, that you don't necessarily want your mobile readers to look at, or it maybe crashes their device or is slow, then you can just use a representative image instead in that situation. And so that's a nice improvement. Very last of all, we've also added audio as a media type in Cascade. This isn't ambient audio that plays whenever you open the story, but it's inline audio that users can play and pause at their own will. And what's coming new in April? Yes, yep. As long as they're in MP3 or other formats, then you can bring them in directly via a link. So now coming in April, with the next ArcGIS Online release, we have a couple exciting new things. Probably the most important is the new layout in Map Tour. So we've added a new layout that's pretty modern looking. It looks really nice. It also works great on the phone, looks great on the phone. That will be coming. And you can build that through the same builder that you now build Map Tours with, so it'll be compatible in that way. We've also added builder support for Firefox for Cascade. We've received a lot of feedback that was something people wanted, and so we now support building Cascades in Firefox. We've added an in-app map editor. If you're familiar with Map Journal and Map Series, we've actually embedded the ArcGIS Online Map Viewer in the app so that you can edit your maps. You can create maps directly within there instead of having to go out to ArcGIS Online and then come back. And we've added that in Cascade now as well. We've also added printing in Cascade. So if you have a Cascade story map that your customers or other people want printed, you can do so. We've added HTML editor into Map Series. That was the example I showed where you can customize Map Journal without downloading and self-hosting. That same functionality is coming to Map Series, as well as adding main stage actions in Map Series.
Okay, and then just as a last, so that you don't have to memorize everything that we just said or remember it, I just want to point you to where you can find most all of this information. Besides, obviously, this is going to be recorded and going to be on proceedings.esri.com. In the meantime, and also if you have more questions, obviously, you can go to our website. We have a developer corner that is specifically geared more towards people who would be at this conference, who want to do the customizations and more that we have shown here. We also have a blog on arcgis.com that is a little bit more generic and more like customer-facing focused than developer-focused. There's a story maps forum on GeoNet, and we are on it all the time. So don't just think that we're here once a year and all of your complaints and questions go unanswered for a whole year. We're on it every day. We get notifications every time somebody posts on there. So if you have questions for us, feel free to post them there. That's probably the best way to get a hold of us. And then also all of our stuff is on github.com/Esri. It's all open source. You should search for story maps. Every app has its own README that is really detailed for developers. I just want to show a couple of these. This is our Story Maps website. There's a bunch of really good resources here. Every app has its own page. This is the list of all of them, but if you wanted to, for instance, know a little bit more about a cascade, you would click on this, and there's, as I mentioned before, the host it yourself option here, that if you're doing a lot of deep customizations, that's where you would want to go. Our gallery, I go to all the time, like a dozen times a day, just to see what people are doing. This is a curated set of cool stories that we really like. You can filter. This is particularly helpful for me because I'm often just working on one app at a time. You can filter on app type. So I want to see what all the cool new cascades are. Here they are. And you can also filter by, where is it, format. If you click on customized, it will filter for cascades. It's already filtering on cascades, and then it'll show you ones that people have done more interesting things to than just what you can do in Builder. This is our developer corner. It's blog posts, but it's really targeted towards developers. So this is the story that we saw that was blue in the background and white as a header. And so if you are excited about a white header, you can do that by following this blog post. This is our ArcGIS blog. You should stick with Developer Corner. It's got better pictures. This is GeoNet. This is our GeoNet forum, which again, we're on it all the time. And then if you go to github.com/Esri and you search for story maps, you will find all 8 of our templates here. And you will find a giant README with pictures, and you can view it live, and you can download it, and you can go to our Story Maps website. And then if you get down here, there should be tips for developers, configuration, customization, developer guide. Here's the application lifestyle. Here's all of this stuff. So I know it sucks when somebody's like, just go read the README, but don't just go read the README, but it's there if you have questions in the middle of the night, and we're not responding immediately on GeoNet. So that is, hang on, wait. please take our survey. It's on the Esri Events app, and you find our session and then go and rate us and tell us how amazing this was. We would love to take questions at this point. What questions do you have about anything? We were amazing. They don't have any questions. Really? Yes. Hello.
If I have ArcGIS deployment and not using ArcGIS online, is all this possible if I'm working in disconnected mode?
So the question was, is all of this possible when working in basically with Portal in a disconnected mode? Much of it is possible. I mean, you can still do the downloading and hosting yourself in that disconnected environment if it can still talk to Portal. All of these apps are on Portal, and you should be able to do most of it, except you can't do like AGO Assistant to change the JSON, but you can change it a different way. There's a REST endpoint that you can modify. Like AGO Assistant is just like a wrapper for some Python and REST endpoints, so you can do that yourself if you want to. Okay. Okay.
Good, yeah, and we do support, as Allison mentioned, we do support Portal, whether it's disconnected or connected, and most of our templates are on there, so.
I will say so Portal, as you probably know, is like a couple release cycles behind, so the new stuff coming in April is not coming in April for Portal. It's going to be in sometime later.
Sometime late this year.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Now feel free to come talk to us if you have any. We'd love to chat with you. Oh, yes?
So what do you suggest for the best way to handle a template? So I want to apply the same templates for all my story maps. If I update it, I want those updated.
Do you want the same data in each, or more just the same look and feel?
I'm thinking more like branding, right? So
Okay.
there could be different types. Might be a map journal, might be cascades. Is there...
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Allison can probably show you this. We've worked on putting in organizational theming. If you have an organization and that's the branding you want, then logo and depending on the different template type, certain colors that may show in the header, we can have those. So that's an easy way to customize if that's the branding you want. That can happen without having to customize the code yourself.
Okay. What I did before is kind of a work. I'll clone my story map. Shameless plug, got these admin tools and clone the story map, and then I just update it from there. And that way I carry over all my work settings. This is a quick one.
Yeah, it gets it done, right?
So this is a quick example. I thought something was blue. Something used to be blue here. But this is an org that we have an organizational theme set up for. And so this is not colors that you would see on the default theme picker. And I can show you what it looks like here. So if in ArcGIS Online or Portal, if your org has set up an org theme or organizational colors, including a logo and I think a click-through link, it'll go into Map Series, Map Journal, and Cascade's not going to do colors, but it'll do the link and the logo. So in this theme here, now I've got my organizational theme as an option, and that wasn't there before. There's 6 defaults. And so this one, as you can see, the links are orange. The .nav used to be blue. Somebody's been messing with it this week. But it's just, it brings your branding together so that you don't have to do it every time. Was that? Okay. Cool. What else? Yeah.
Most of my story maps I create for a resolution of 1920 by 1080, a big monitor. Is there a way that if somebody's on an iPad and pull mine up, I can have a thing that tells them that there's a better resolution for their mobile device?
That's a good question. Sometimes we have authors that in their text will just say, this is best viewed with a certain... We do really try to make our story maps responsive. If there are any issues you've seen, we love to hear from them. I work at about the same resolution myself at work. But yeah, our story maps are built to be viewable at any size. So yeah, feel free to come talk to us if you're having problems with certain media type that isn't showing.
It's crammed up and the map gets shortened and it's squished. People that are going through the different indexes, they go into a hotspot, next thing you know, it's off screen or something. You have to keep scrolling over it.
I think we definitely want to hear about that.
Yeah, come
that
talk
sounds
to
like
us.
a bug. What else? Okay.
Great. Well, thank you guys for coming. We appreciate your attendance, and definitely give feedback and let us know how it went.
Take our survey. Stop by the island.